everyone, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. Well, today we're going to do the first mod here on the 2022 Jeep Wrangler. If you remember, I had the JK and the door hinges on that were all chipped up from stones. So I'm going to install a pair of mud flaps here today. I looked online at all the options and wasn't happy with anything I seen. They all stick out past the fender flare a little, and it just looks awful. So I'm gonna DIY my own. I think I came up with a really good way of installing these. Hopefully it pans out, but I'll soon know here in a minute. But if it does work, it's gonna be super easy, super cheap, and hopefully look halfway decent for mud flaps. I mean, none of them look great, and I hate the idea of it, period. But if you've had a Wrangler, you know these hinges stick out past the doors, unlike your typical cars that the hinges are all on the inside, and they're just magnets for stone chips. And then especially with knobby tires, it's just gonna happen. This does have the rock rails, so that should help a little, but they're still set under pretty far, and you got a lot of exposed tire here. This is only going on the front. The rear, it's just all plastic bumper, so you don't have to worry about too much back there. So this is just going to be small flaps on the front. It's freezing cold, the middle of winter. It's not the ideal time for this, but don't want to drive this until they're on, so we're gonna try to get it done here. It's like 18 degrees with 15-mile-an-hour wind, so it's probably like 0 degrees out. Here's the package the flaps came in. I got them off eBay, and there will be a link in the description below if you'd like to pick up a set. They're a little thinner than I was hoping for, but I think they'll work. And they do come with some pretty nice hardware, which was kind of surprising. I figured the quality would be pretty cheap and poor, but Red Hound Auto is the name of them. And as far as the hardware, it all looks pretty decent quality. I've definitely seen far worse. It even comes with some instructions, which, like I said, just universal instructions, and we're not going to be following anything on there. But it's kind of amazing that they even come with that. And then as far as the mud flaps themselves, I already cut them, as I'll show you here in this clip. But they were just standard 8 by 13 mud flaps, and then I just trimmed the ends of them off to make them square. I didn't need that part. I'm going to cut the end of these flaps off. It'll make it easier for the install. So I think these are thin enough and soft enough material that a razor blade will work. You'll want a nice sharp one, and I'm just going to use the other mud flap, and I'm going to cut on the back side. So the back side's flat, and the front side that you're going to see is the textured. And we're just going to use this as the straight edge and line it up with over here. Alright guys, so I switched out my straight edge here. If the blade would slip, you'd end up destroying your other mud flap, so that's not a good idea. So I switched that out because we're going to have to use a little more pressure than I originally thought. But like I said, again, you're just going to want to make a few passes and just keep applying more and more pressure each time. And there it is, guys. Trim that right off. And we'll do the same to this one. Well, that works pretty good, guys. Just follow your score mark straight down. And there you are. Roughly 2 8 by 8. I would need to measure them for sure, but the mud flaps were 8 by 13, and we cut this flap off the top. So I think it's going to leave us with an 8 by 8 square, which is perfect. Some of the tools you're going to need are a drill and a 1/4 inch drill bit. Marker to mark where you're going to need to drill the holes in these flaps to mount them. Straight screwdriver, pliers, or trim removal tool to pull out 2 body plugs. And how I'm going to mount these is by using these 2 plugs in your factory fender liner. And we're going to hopefully be able to pull them out, slip this up between the fender liner and the mounting tabs that these 2 Christmas tree fasteners fasten to, and that will put the mud flap flush with the edge here of the fender flare, because I do not, like I said earlier, like any of the styles of mud flaps that add a lip on here. And then instead of using these Christmas trees, we will probably end up just replacing them with a pair of bolts with nuts on the back side. That way this all stays nice and tight. They go right up against the rock sliders, so that'll definitely help support them with like the wind and stuff coming off the tower, so they don't flex way back. And they're more plastic than they are rubber, so they shouldn't do that much anyways. But if you look up under here, you can see the 2 mounting holes where those Christmas trees went into. Those are the ones we're going to be using to mount these mud flaps. So I'm going to trace those holes, they're 1/4 inch, drill that into the mud flap here that we're adding, and then, like I said, I think I'm going to replace the Christmas trees with actual 1/4 inch bolts. You probably could use the Christmas trees, but the extra weight of this mud flap hanging down, especially if it would get snow or anything on it, I think we're going to end up just putting bolts in there. That way everything stays tight too, and your mud flaps don't get all cockeyed. But as you can see here, there's where those 2 mounting points will be. So they're 7 1/4 by 8 wide, and I think the size is just perfect. Alright guys, so I got my 1/4 inch holes drilled in the mud flap piece here. And this is the hardware we're going to be using. I grabbed a pack of 1/4 by 20 by 3/4 inch black bolts from the local hardware store. That way they're not shiny and they'll kind of go with the wheel well liners and the mud flaps. So I grabbed those. Gonna need 8 washers and 4 locking nuts. I went with the nylon kind, that way nothing ends up coming loose. You'll need a stubby screwdriver if you have one. That'll make it easier to get between the tire and the fender there. And you'll need a 7/16 wrench. Ratcheting wrench is probably the easiest. So I grabbed one of our black bolts and washer, and you just line up the holes that you drilled in the mud flap with these ones in the fender liner and the ones going through the tab there on the back. Once you get both of these started, you can grab a little stubby. It'll fit in here much easier, and just run these in snug. Then we'll move around to the back side and put on another set of washers and then the nuts. So there, we got that kind of snugged up. We'll probably want to adjust these washers, get them all centered. I hate how washers fit a little loose. But that looks pretty good on that side, so we'll move around to the back side. Alright, so you can see our bolts sticking through here. You want to put another washer on the back side of each one of them. And then we'll go in with the lock nuts. Just like that. Then you'll grab your wrench and tighten them down. You won't want to go too tight with this because it is just going into those plastic ears there. Have to grab the screwdriver, hold the other side. Again, you definitely don't want to go too tight with this. It's just plastic. And 3/4 inch was a perfect size. You can see there we're just about 1 thread through the locking nuts. So that's great. You don't want anything too long and sticking way out, but 3/4 of an inch is perfect for all the thicknesses here. Now we'll move on to the second one back here. Snug this one down. And this side will be done. So it'll be quick, easy installation once you get everything lined up and your holes drilled. Alright guys, so there's what it looks like all snugged down. It's nice and flush here with the edge of the fender so nothing sticks out. And then coming around to this side, you can see the 2 1/4 inch bolts there that we replaced those Christmas trees with. So this came out really great. Here's what it looks like from the side. It's above your lower control arm mount there. And the top of the mud flap is actually in line almost with the top of the lower control arm. So nothing hangs too terribly low. And your rock rail here gives it some more support. So it can't flex back with wind, or if a stone comes flying out of your tower, it gives it some extra support there. So hopefully that helps, keeps these hinges from getting all chipped up like my last JK was. And all in all, they do look pretty sleek for any style mud flap. But I'll move around to the passenger side, get that one on, and wrap this project up. Moving on to the passenger side, it's going to be the same process. You slip the mud flap between the fender liner and those plastic tabs that are in behind there. So it'll slip right up in here like this. You'll line up the holes and stick your bolt and washer through. Thread it into that plastic tab on the back side. Grab your second one, feed it through. Center up your washers. And then grab your second set of washers, put them on the back. So then, just like the driver's side, just thread on your nuts here. Grab your wrench and screwdriver and just snug everything down. And just like that, the install is complete. I'll get this buttoned up here and back out in the sun to give you the final walk around. Alright guys, so here we are outside where we actually have some room to move. And these mud flaps are on. So this is going to be the final product here. I think they look super sleek. And might be the nicest mud flaps I've ever seen on a Wrangler. Like I said right from the beginning, I hate even the idea of mud flaps on a Wrangler, but if you've owned one, you know the tires just sling everything up the side, and the stone chips destroy your rear door hinges there. So it's a compromise. And like I said, I think it looks super sleek and as low profile design as possible. Most of the molded ones you buy, like I said, they come halfway up your fender flare there, and they just look awful. This here keeps everything in line and behind that. Very clean design. Doesn't hang too low, like you can see here. It's well above your frame, lower control arms, and anything like that. And I'm hoping filling in this gap here gives you some extra protection. I'm sure it should. Normally this would all be exposed clear up even to here, so dropping that down below your rock rail there should definitely help. Give you a view from this angle. But again, super sleek compared to anything I've seen online. And even some of these thinner styles, they hang out past an inch or two and they just look horrific. But super easy install. I mean, just those 2 bolts there that you replace the Christmas tree pins with. There's a side profile. It comes right pretty much in line with the edge of the tire, which again, like I said, it's right in line with the edge of the fender, so you can't really go any further than that unless you want to have something hanging way out, which is terribly ugly. I'm hoping they do the trick and keep the sides cleaner than having nothing at all. I mean, you could go lower with them, and that would even give you more protection, but then if you're off-road or anything like that, you're going to have a lot more chance of snagging them. So this was a mid-range compromise between having nothing at all and having something that's way too long. But again, you're above your lower control arm mount and almost in line with the top of the lower control arm itself. So plenty high enough that I don't see hardly any way that you could snag them on anything at all. Even coming down over off a rock or anything, they're too high up. That's going to wrap it up for this video. The link to these mud flaps will be in the description below. They were 15 bucks on eBay. So super cheap compared to anything else. The molded ones are 50, 60 bucks. And like I said, they lip out in front of the fenders, which was why I didn't get any of them. It just looks terrible. So hopefully you enjoyed that video there, and maybe it gave you some ideas for putting mud flaps on your own. But stay tuned, there'll be many more upgrades coming, especially once the weather gets a little better. It's just been snowing or sloppy constant here, so with spring coming and warmer temperatures, hopefully we can get some more Jeep videos here. I want to do an in-depth video on the entire Jeep, the buying process and all that, so stay tuned for that, as well as, like I said, other modification videos to come. Alright guys, well, like I said, if you're new here to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them down below, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe to keep these videos coming. You can also follow me on Facebook. The link is in the description below.